So today, we have a partner webinar series. We're welcoming Onyx Graphics. And today's webinar will be on improving your productivity and saving money with Onyx Graphics. Our presenter today is Franklin Fuentes, the Regional Sales Manager for Onyx Graphics. He's coming to us today from a remote location. Franklin, I'm going to go ahead and pass over the screen to you. We'll let everybody know that today's webinar is being recorded and will be available for streaming later in the week. So I will change presenter status over to Franklin.
Okay, great.
And Franklin, when you're ready, take it away.
All right, thanks, Dana, and good morning to everybody and afternoon to those on the East Coast. My name is Franklin Fuentes, Regional Sales Manager with Onyx, and today we're going to talk about increasing productivity and saving money, but more importantly, where Onyx has been able to find software solutions to help save you money and increase productivity. So let me just go ahead and jump right into it. When we set out with this task to help our customers save money, we tried to find areas in the workflow that could use software solutions, and we found out that basically the production costs of a typical print job are mostly overhead. They're not the printing, not the ink, not the media. A lot of workflow overhead going back and forth. Maybe if there's an error in the workflow or the color's not right, just having that job go in more than one time and just spending that extra time in overhead. So that really seemed like a key area for us to focus on and see if we can come up with software solutions to help our customers out. So we certainly did focus on the overhead, and then looking into the workflow, we started to take a look at where exactly in the workflow we could save that overhead cost. And we found this rule called the 5500 rule, 5500 rule, excuse me. And so in this rule, it makes a lot of sense. It basically says if there's going to be an error somewhere in my workflow, and my workflow consists of creation, preparation, production, in the design area, if I'm able to find that error while the designer has it open in his design application, then it's just a couple of clicks that he would have to take to fix that error. And the overhead on fixing that error is extremely minimal, right? He's got the file open in Illustrator or Photoshop already. He's able to make the quick fix and then send it over to Rip before anything comes back. So if he's able to fix that error in the design, it would cost us, let's say, $5. If that file then goes over to the Rip without having that fix, let's say our designer wasn't able to fix it, goes over to the Rip station. Now the operator's got to make a fix in the Rip using the tools that he has available in the Rip, or he has to send it back to the designer. Now we're all of a sudden increasing overhead. We're increasing time. We're increasing the time that could be used for production. We'll call that opportunity cost. Our opportunity cost is really going away as we play around with this file with extra time. So at this point, let's just say that would cost us $50. And then, of course, if we don't catch it in the Rip or the design station and we actually rip and print the file, we now have the physical materials, the ink, and we have to go back, surely wasting a lot more money, which would be the 500 point. So this 500 rule made a lot of sense when we took a look at it, and we basically said, how do we get more tools upstream so that our customers can basically fix these files or create the files in a way that's predictable, that gets you the production in and out as fast as possible per job so that you can continue working and get more work done. So with that, we started to take a look at some problems that could be occurring in the workflow. Some of the issues up front, sophisticated graphic design effects. We're going to be talking about Adobe in this case. They're always releasing new versions. They're always releasing new elements, new effects that designers love to use. They look great, but sometimes they can cause problems with the Rip. And generally speaking, the rips have to keep up with the design applications to make sure that we're able to process these elements. So that becomes a problem. As new design apps have these new elements and effects that they create, rips have to keep up. Increased labor and material costs when print doesn't match the intent. Of course, predictability. If what we expect isn't what we printed, then of course we go right back to the beginning of the workflow and start playing around with that file to try to get the print, the color that we want, or the output that we intended, and we're just going in a circle that's really wasting us a lot of money. Inefficiencies when operators are forced to move among multiple RIP computers. This happens if you have multiple printers, or let's say you're starting to grow in your shop and you actually have more than one person running the workflow. If you have one computer per printer, or let's say one computer that's driving multiple printers, but you have more than one person running that workflow, then all of a sudden you've got people waiting in line for the RIP computer, or somebody having to bounce around from computer to computer to get this work done. So that can cause a little bit of extra time wasted. Could be minimal. In some cases, it could be quite a bit. And we also found that PDF is really beginning to take a stand in our environment, in our marketplace. Let's say more and more customers are using PDF. Print buyers are starting to demand a PDF workflow. It's easy for them to create PDF, but then again, it could cause some problems in the RIP if they're using newer technology, newer design applications to create those PDF files. So these are some of the issues that we saw that our customers are seeing, and let's say we could create a software solution to try to alleviate these issues. Okay, so then we came up with Onyx Thrive. This is really the product that we're going after to try to address these inefficiencies in our customers' workflow. And basically, with Thrive, we built a solution that is 100% PDF compliant. It's an Adobe Rip internally. There is no other underlying Rip. And now Adobe in, Adobe out, less errors, becomes more predictable. So that's going to reduce our overhead time by allowing us to rip the files in the way that it was intended to rip. That's the first step that we put into this workflow. So what I mean by 100% Adobe Rip is there are solutions out there that include the Adobe Rip, but the unique thing that Onyx did is that we only included the Adobe Rip rather than add it as a supplementary RIP for PDF files. And this basically got us Adobe's backing, and they let us use their No Surprises campaign because there really is no other way to rip a file within Onyx Thrive. It's always going to go through Adobe. And the benefit here is if you open your file in Adobe Acrobat, that's how it's going to rip in the Onyx Thrive RIP. So it really helps alleviate that overhead of finding PDF errors, bounding box issues, dropped fonts, or anything like that. So again, with Adobe's No Surprises campaign, this is why they're really backing the Onyx Thrive workflow currently as the only RIP that's got a 100% Adobe workflow. Now this is also going to work with other files. The nice thing here is that everything is normalized to fit the Adobe workflow, so any other file type is still going to work and is still going to give you predictable results with the Adobe Rip. Another thing that we found is as customers grow, or as your shops begin to add printers and add printing capabilities, as your customers demand more production, what typically happens is you'll end up with multiple RIPs and multiple printers. And what happens at this point is now you have to have somebody that's familiar with different rips to run different printers, or maybe the same rip but one computer per printer. And whether that's 3 different people in this example or one person running around for, over to 3 computers, it really becomes hard to create similar results across all printers, because not only may they be different model printers, but with different rips, you're going to end up processing those files differently, and it's not going to give you the same results. And so these growing pains of increasing your shop production now become very very pertinent in your workflow and could actually cause quite a bit of overhead. So this is another thing that we look to address with Thrive, and we basically said, how can we increase the workflow productivity of our customers with Thrive in a very, very flexible way? And one example of a Thrive workflow could be that you have either your one person that runs all printers or the many people that run all the printers have independent modules on their computers so that they don't have to be getting up to go to the RIP computer. They can work from their stations and then process all the files over to a RIP server that then can rip anywhere from 1 to 8 files at a time, depending on how much processing power you need. And then from that RIP server, it goes out to all the printers. That's one example of a Thrive workflow, being able to have one RIP server and having independent modules on your employee's computer so that they can basically sit down, get the work done, and not have to get up and run around and check the RIP computer or work on the RIP computer. Another example, this is actually a real-world example from a customer that we had in Phoenix. He was running his workflow like this, with one computer on 6 printers. And let's just say he was, at this point he was very frustrated because it was very slow to run 6 printers on one computer. But he also had 3 designers and 3 operators trying to get in line at the RIP computer and do their work all at the same time. So what we set up for them was a workflow like this, where at the top level, we put in the Onyx key. That key then broadcasts across the entire network saying, these are the licenses that I have for these modules. Whoever wants to use them, whatever computer wants to use them, you can have them. On the middle level there, we put 3 job editor stations at the designer's level. So each designer that was running with Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator, what have you, now also had job editor, which was formerly known as pre-flight with Onyx, on their computers. Each one of these designers now has a list of 6 printers that they can choose where this file, this job, is going to print. Based on the printer that they choose, when they submit it, it goes over to the appropriate 3rd level there, to the appropriate operator. The operator is then in charge of just making sure those printers are up and running and queuing up the jobs that come in to produce them. Having everybody be able to take a part in their work in the workflow and just do their part increased productivity significantly, and this really went after that overhead cost that we talked about in the 550-500 rule. If we're able to bring more of those tools upstream to the designers, they're able to complete more tasks, and the operators are able to just produce. Okay, so what's important in your shop to be able to save money? Basically, everything we talked about is really focusing on these three items to help save money and time. Predictability, being able to print predictable results. Performance, you want something that's going to perform, whether it's fast or whether it just flows in your workflow. And scalability, the ability to grow without having too many growing pains, right? You don't want the heart of your business that's producing your revenue to have growing pains that are going to cause you to lose revenue. So there's a question here, what about a reverse workflow where there are many job editors feeding the licensed server and the server is delivering to the printer? Absolutely, that would work. We can, depending on the workflow that fits your needs, you can have many job editors feeding to one server. And if I back up a little bit, that's kind of what this example here is showing. I could have job editors on PCs or production managers, which I'll show you in a minute, on Macs, all feeding into one RIP server. Now the license itself can be plugged into any computer on the network. It doesn't really matter. It just gets plugged into one computer and that starts broadcasting a signal. So at that point, any computer that I want to install a job editor will automatically find any available licenses. There's no setting up of IPs. There's no master-slave. So this workflow becomes very flexible to where you could have one person sending jobs to many RIP computers and having one RIP computer per printer, or have many designers submitting to one monstrous blade server that actually one of our customers did, set up a blade server with 16 RIPs. So yes, that it's flexible and it'll actually work with whatever fits there. So let's continue here. So a couple of ways to really ensure that you're getting the most out of your hardware and your employees is these 3 points: predictability, scalability, and performance. So with predictability, of course, the Adobe Rip really helps you confidently reproduce this work without surprises. And it is going to work with any file type. So that really helps you become predictable and not have that wasted time up front. Performance, definitely if a RIP performs a little bit faster for you, it's gonna help. But more importantly, the ability to submit more work and to become more productive with a workflow that just fits your specific needs and not having to fit your workflow around a specific product capabilities. So sure, it's faster, but more importantly, it's going to fit your workflow to work like a well-oiled machine. The production manager, which I briefly mentioned up a second ago, is something that's really going to help you be even more flexible and have your RIP perform better so that you can submit more work from any location. And let me just kind of show you what that production manager looks like. So the production manager is a web-based tool that will work from any computer that has a web browser or even an iPad or even iPhone, Android, any of that good stuff. And it's going to let you take a look at all the jobs that are in the RIP queue that are pending, waiting to RIP. But it's also going to let you submit those jobs to the printer. So you could initiate printing from the production manager. We have a customer that is actually has hired a person to run around between his 20 printers to make sure the printers have ink and media, and he's equipped with an iPad that just hits submit or start printing when any given printer is loaded up with ink and media and it has jobs pending. So this could become very, very productive to be able to, anywhere in your shop, be able to start your printing. And if you're running this from a Mac or a PC, you also have the ability to use quick sets, which are automated settings that allow you to apply any setting that you can in the RIP automatically to any job. So those could include tiling, rotating, color corrections, number of copies, etc. I've got a question here in comparison to printing natively from Photoshop. How robust is the Adobe Print Driver PDF when it comes to color management? The color management that's going to be used here in Thrive is still going to be the Onyx color management. which is, I'm actually going to show you a benefit of one of our color management enhancements that we've made. Printing directly from Adobe still has to go through a RIP, so I'm not sure if I understand that question correctly. But just so that you know, the color management is Onyx color management, and the ripping, interpreting of those PostScript PDF files is Adobe. And the web interface question here, can it be restricted to only one or only certain admin groups? It is open, but you could set it up to use a specific port so that only your admins know the port to use to jump into the production manager. And the production manager will only work within the internal network. So as great as it might be to be able to go to the coffee shop and run production from your local Starbucks, you do have to be on the internal network to access your RIP and what's going on in the production workflow there. So not directly limited, but does have a couple of ways to give access only to those who you give the address to. All right, and then on the scalability point, really as you're starting out, whether you have one printer or multiple printers, again, going back to those growing pains, as you grow, you don't want to increase overhead and wasted time as you grow and you need to produce more work. And so being able to have a software solution that really tailors your needs instead of you having to grow around the limitation of a specific software really becomes a smart investment to grow your business. And so that's really what we tried to achieve here with Thrive, and we've been able to, using those workflow examples that I showed you earlier, allowing you to basically put whatever module you want on whatever computer based on how many employees you have and your specific workflow. So it becomes very scalable, open, flexible, and of course we do that distributing those modules. So this is a great question here. I see a number of benefits using this workflow on multiple printers, but what about having only one printer and one RIP station? That's a great question. In fact, there's many benefits as you grow. If you plan to add multiple printers in the future, really that's where it becomes an investment that you can make sure that your workflow is going to grow around you instead of, as you grow, have the growing pains of having to build around your workflow or around the limitations of the software. But more importantly, if I only have one printer today, what would Thrive bring to me? Well, first of all, the predictability of the Adobe Rip to try to avoid waste. I don't want to print anything that's going to go in the garbage can. The less often I empty out my garbage can, the better, right? And so if I can be predictable as far as printing something the first time and delivering it the first time, then that's going to save me quite a bit of money. And also profiling, which I'm going to touch on here with the next slide, Michelle. Profiling could be a huge benefit whether I have one printer or many. One of the new features that we added is of course vivid color, trying to get better color every iteration of software. But the compelling one is GCR Plus. And with GCR Plus, basically our engineers have found a way to aggressively take out CMY, cyan, magenta, and yellow ink, and replace it with black in a way that saves more ink than we've ever been able to do with standard GCR. And so GCR Plus, by creating my own profiles and making the investment to take the time and purchase the hardware to create profiles, I could save anywhere from 10, 15, maybe even 20% of ink on my jobs, depending on how what that image is based on. The backgrounds, the colors, and everything that's in there. So if I can now save a significant amount of ink and I'm producing enough that over a month's time that's going to be a large chunk of money, then I can see where an investment to go with the workflow that's not only going to help me grow in the future, but it could affect my revenue stream immediately by saving ink. Okay, got it. So got a question here for printing direct from Photoshop from a fine art perspective. So an experience that that somebody has had here has found that printing through Onyx creates allows for less contrast than printing direct from Photoshop. Now, on a fine art perspective, you're probably not going to want to do something like GCR Plus because you're going to be looking at that up front really close, and you want it to be as vibrant as possible. So within our color management engine that I don't talk about here, we also have a UCR, which is intended for fine art reproduction. And so yes, you can create profiles for every type of workflow that you're doing. We do have a lot of tools in there that's going to range from fine art reproduction to printing banners at very high speeds and low ink, but just enough quality that it's going to look great and be sellable output. So yes, that is true. Our standard profiles are going to be all around good profiles for any workflow, but you can really hone in on your specific workflow and make profiles that are going to apply to your jobs and your work. So whether that's going for fine art or whether it's let's try to save money on all these banners that we're making that we can use GCR Plus on. Okay, good question. Are the new color features that I'm mentioning part of Thrive only or a standard part of Onyx? We are marketing them in Thrive, but they are, as an added benefit, going into our standard Onyx products at version 10.2 and up. So these are all-around Onyx features. They will be part of Thrive and Production House 10.2. So thanks for that question. That's a great question. If you do happen to have Production House, you can upgrade to 10.2 and receive these color features. Okay, so going back to overhead and eliminating that, really it comes down to can we accurately reproduce what we have and can we do it in a very efficient manner, and then of course we have variation that's going to be our enemy if we're trying to be predictable. So just to review, using the Adobe Rip, whether I have one printer or many, is going to really take away that variation. If I'm producing my images in Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator, creating them in Illustrator, I'm going to process them and rip them with Adobe, and that's really going to help the predictability and avoid errors. Being able to add power, regardless of how many printers I have, with the Thrive key, with that license being broadcast across the network, I can choose to have one computer or many. So, and I can do that at any point. So if I happen to have licenses for, let's say, 2 active rips, I could put those 2 rips on one computer, and the moment that I feel that that computer is being a bottleneck, at no additional charge, I can just put in another computer and split up the rips, 1 per computer. And the Production House becomes a very useful but fun interactive tool to use, being able to print directly from an iPad or mobile device. Okay, another great question. Touch on the differences between the JAWS Rip and the Adobe Rip. While JAWS maintains we're going to maintain the JAWS Rip within the traditional products, which is going to be Rip Center, Poster Shop, Production House. Thrive is going to be 100% Adobe. Why are we doing that? Well, JAWS is a great rip, and it's a native PDF rip. However, the people creating JAWS are not creating the creation applications, Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign, etc. So having an Adobe Rip really lets us stay on the, let's say, the cutting edge of technology and giving our customers the capability of having less errors as Adobe comes out with new features and new elements that that designers love to use. So while it's a great rip, using the Adobe Rip has really let us offer a little bit better predictability to our customers and really avoiding that overhead element. So hopefully that answers your question there between the JAWS and the Adobe Rip. We focused on the Adobe Rip to be able to give our customers that predictability. So that's the Thrive, the actual Rip component. A couple other things that I wanted to share with you that are going to be on the $5 section of the 550-500 rule are smart apps. And these applications, these plugins, are really Rip independent. So these can be applied regardless of whatever Rip you have, whether it's a VersaWorks or a Rip Center or a Thrive. You could use these plugins to help reduce overhead on the design end and include them in your workflow right away. So what are smart apps? Essentially, they are plugins for your creation apps. If you happen to use Illustrator, Acrobat Pro, you could plug in these smart apps, and all of a sudden we have very specific things to our marketplace right in Illustrator that allow us to complete more work at the front end, up at the upstream. Let me answer a question real quick on the Adobe Rip before we keep going with the smart apps. The question was essentially that, are we continuing to develop Production House? Yes, our standard products will continue to be in development. We will have customers that just want a very low-cost Rip Center. We're waiting to see how the marketplace reacts, but we're not going to get rid of the Rip Center Poster Shop Production House anytime soon. Currently, we're offering Thrive as a more complete solution, but our standard products have their place in our industry, and we're not going to be getting rid of them anytime soon. It's yet to be seen what's going to happen with Production House, with Thrive being really the next level of productivity. Question, is there any advantage to printing from a PC versus a Mac? I would say absolutely. Don't get me wrong, I love Macs. I think they're great. I also think that you can get the same amount of power at about half the price. So ripping from a PC is much better because it costs you much less to create a monstrous ripping computer than it would be from a Mac. And at that point, you could just put the ripping instances on that computer and let it do the number crunching while you have your, let's say, job editor modules or your design modules somewhere else. And that rip is not tying up the amount of work that somebody could do on a different computer. So I believe that, yeah, there is absolutely an advantage to printing over from a PC when you're going to be doing a lot of ripping computing, just because you can build a much more powerful computer from a PC at a lower price. Okay, I've got a question that I'm going to touch on here in a little bit, so I'll just continue on with this, and then we'll talk about Pitstop here in just a second. I'm going to go over the plugins that we have, and there may be some here that are very interesting to you based on what you do, on the type of work that you do day to day. If you do signs and banners and things like that a lot, we have a sign and banner plugin, which is an Illustrator plugin. So if you're working in Illustrator, you can use this sign and banner plugin to do things like bleeds, cut marks, fold marks, grommet marks. You can very, very quickly add these types of marks with a number of, let's say, 1 to 3 clicks. You can prepare your banner with 2-inch bleed, grommets, let's say 3 grommets across the top or grommets every 12 inches, and put in the marks for folding and cutting, trimming the corners, so that when those edges are folded, you don't have a corner that's got a ton of material there that you're trying to keep down. It's just the edges butt up against each other. So all these marks are really going to help on the finishing side, but you can create them within a number of clicks, 1 to 5 clicks in Illustrator. So it becomes a very efficient tool to help you get more done on the finishing side. So Illustrator plugs right into Illustrator, and of course, if our guys can produce more banners throughout the day, then I'm going to be making more money with the same amount of time. So here's a screenshot of what the Sign and Banner plugin looks like and a little bit what it does. Essentially, I can just do my bleeds, whether I want them to be all across the top, bottom, left, right, or I could just do, let's say, a pole pocket on the top. I could do a mirrored bleed, a double-sided bleed, or just a white no bleed, but just give me some extra space for that pole pocket. I can do the grommets, and I can even place those grommets in the bleed area so that when the finishing guys put that banner face down and they fold up, they'll have those marks right there ready to go, and just as part of the folding the banners up, they can put the grommets right in. And this is the entire plugin. It tries to be very simple, just a couple of very targeted features. And the great thing about this plugin is that it also works with Adobe Actions. So I could set up, let's say, workflows for a banner at a specific size, pole pockets, or whatever it is that I'm doing more than once, and then that plugin, those functions become available to me with a single click, with just one click on an action. So again, being able to do something so quickly on the design side is really going to help out downstream and help me produce more. Now, I've got a question about the licensing of Smart Apps. Can you use it on multiple stations? The way that Smart Apps work is it is one per computer. So while you can purchase multiple licenses, they're priced very aggressively so that they work on one computer. If you do want more than one station to have the Smart Apps, then you would purchase that package for each computer that you want to have the plugins. Okay, the next one is Pitstop Pro. I do have a question about Pitstop Pro here, but let me real quickly explain what it is. Pitstop Pro plugin is for Acrobat, Adobe Acrobat Pro, and what it does is it's basically a PDF file integrity check. Not necessarily something that's going to fail to rip in whatever rip you have, but more importantly, is the file prepared for my final output, for my desired output? So things like, are the fonts embedded? Is image resolution of an embedded raster graphic going to have enough resolution to be blown up to a banner? Or is it going to look pixelated? Again, if something comes out pixelated, that's not going to be a rip error. But it could cause me to have to throw that banner away. So things like that are being able to be addressed in Pitstop Pro. You can set up workflows for billboards or banners or vehicle wraps or whatever it is that you do, and then you would set a number of checkpoints against what you want it to look for. So if it's a billboard, I would probably want it to check for image resolution, make sure it's not going to look terrible. Maybe even check against Pantone colors to make sure that the Pantone colors are addressed correctly. So that's what Pitstop Pro is for. It's a PDF integrity check. We see this as a shop that really needs a lot of these standards for their work. They can now check them and not have to be looking around in the rip or printing and throwing away. So the question is going to be deployed at the user level to screen PDFs before they hit Thrive. Absolutely. This can be placed at the designer level or on a separate computer, anywhere that you really want it to be. It could even be set up at your customers. I mean, if you have a customer that's constantly giving you complex PDFs, you could suggest to them that they get the Pitstop Pro plugin and they automatically pre-flight their files to make sure that it's going to work in your shop on your printer. You could determine the standards to check for and how to fix certain errors that might come up, and then give them those standards so that before they send you a file, they could pre-flight those files and get you print-ready artwork. Okay, so here's just an example of what might happen without a Pitstop Pro plugin. We get the customer graphic in, our in-house designer takes a look at it, we rip and print it, we go to confirm it, and let's say for some reason there's no rip error, there's no really visible error, but let's say a graphic dropped out because it was in a layer that it wasn't supposed to be on or something like that. Or for whatever reason, the job is rejected. So if you're seeing a lot of that, you may want to consider something like the Pitstop Pro plugin to be able to make sure that those files are good before you rip and print them and just get them out the door. Again, this doesn't address rip errors. It's more the file integrity to make sure that it's good for our output. And the most recent one that we put out is a vehicle wrap plugin. If you're doing a lot of vehicle wraps, this is a very interesting plugin for you. It basically it does plug into Illustrator, so we're back to Adobe Illustrator for this plugin. Really what it does is it allows you to, again, bring more tools upstream to that $5 point, the 550, 500 rule. It allows you to create tiling within Illustrator, and not just basic tiling, but quite powerful, robust tiling within the Creation app. So currently, you know, we've got a designer that's creating the artwork using these templates, and they just create a big file that then goes over to the Rip, and then the Rip tiles out these jobs. And whoever's working on the Rip is attempting to make these tiles fit as best as you can on the width of material that you have, possibly even rotating a couple of images to save more media. With the Vehicle Wrap plugin, all that paneling and all the tiling is done on the Illustrator side. So by the time it gets to the Rip operator, he just has a series of files that are already set up the size of his media that he just needs to print. So again, if we already have a designer looking at this artwork and playing with the image, if we just give them that extra tool to be able to tile, then they've already got the image open, they can get it done, and then send print-ready artwork to the Rip. So here's what the plugin looks like, and essentially, right within Illustrator, you're able to tell it what size of media you have, what overlaps you want, and then you just drag across your artwork, the template that you've already put in there, the artwork that you put over it, you drag right across it, and it automatically breaks up the tiles for you. At that point, if you do happen to have your driver side and passenger side within the same image, you can just make a copy of that tile layout and flip it and put it right over the opposite side. You could even create a tile within a tile to, let's say, cut out the information above the hood here so that we're not printing that and then throwing it away. And when we're done, we could even click the Create Wrap dock to create a map of the vehicle wrap, and then submit the individual images as individual Illustrator files over to the Rip. So again, getting print-ready artwork to the Rip operator really can increase productivity here. So that's basically the tools and that we put together for saving time and money through Onyx. Hopefully you guys have seen how we've been able to come up with some software solutions to help alleviate some of those overhead issues, overhead problems that a lot of our customers have seen. And hopefully you're able to see that, you know, whether you have one printer or many, addressing some of these overhead issues now is really going to help you in the long run as your company grows, but could potentially save you quite a bit of money immediately with one printer or many printers. And with that, I'd like to thank you guys for your time. If you have any questions about this stuff, please send me an email or give me a call. That's my cell phone number there. I'd be happy to get you more information about any of these products. I did have a question about creating a white paper for color management. We do have a lot of stuff online. We do have trainings online as well. So if you want to reach out to me, I can get you some of the white papers that we already have, or definitely request something if you do have a specific question. We can get you set up with the right people. But again, thank you guys for your time this morning, this afternoon, and please reach out if you have any additional questions or would like to try any of these products.
And to wrap things up, I want to thank Franklin Fuentes from Onyx Graphics for joining us today. Our webinar today was Improve Productivity and Save Money with Onyx Graphics. Again, if you have any feedback on the webinar, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you think we can do better, or if you have any ideas for future webinars, please shoot us an email at academyfeedback@rolanddga.com. This webinar has been recorded today and will be available for streaming later in the week. I will deliver the link for this video to Franklin so that he has the ability to pass it out for those of you that are not Roland owners. For those of you that are Roland owners, you can access it from our video archive at rolanddga.com/webinars. You can go to that link here, and as you can see right up here, View Webinar Archive is where we keep all of our webinars. We've got about 75 of them, and they are streaming 24/7. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of our webinar this week. We'll see you next week.